This is an FIE Composer 2.0 help video. The main topic is the person, and this video is on the SRT. So we'll just open up Composer over here. This is a new scene. I'm just going to add a person, and I'm going to add a headlight so we can see what's going on. Okay, and we'll select the person in the working set, and we'll take a look at the SRT manipulation. So the SRT manipulation is an orthographic view. Really, I'm not going to get too much into that. If you want to see more on orthographic views, just look at the help video on the cube, or the cube piece, where we go in pretty substantial detail on how to manipulate this. But I just want to show you in a general sense. The person SRT is pretty much exactly like the cube SRT. There's not much else to it. You just move them around pretty much as is. I guess the thing that's worth noting for something like the person, who's a little more complex than the cube, is just that the SRT starts out on the ground plane, sort of between his 2 feet, or her 2 feet. And that the pose is going to stay. He's staying in a T pose. I'm just moving his whole person, scaling, rotating, and translating the whole person around in space. Generally, for working in Composer, what I recommend is that you keep the posing, the pose, what you do with with the person when you pose them, that you keep them generally centered on that SRT, with the SRT representing the ground plane, or I guess if they're flying, you can sort of deal with it at sort of like hip level. But in that sense, you keep your pose library somewhat generic, where their position in the scene is something that you control with the SRT, and then their pose, once you've sort of set their position, is something separate from the SRT. If you work in character animation, this may seem unintuitive, or just flatly wrong, because in animation usually you have characters walking off of their SRT to maintain things like contact, their feet sticking to the ground into the world. But for now, Composer is for composing stills and storyboards, and in previs it's much more common to have characters sort of stay generally central over their SRT, and have an intermediate null might be used to sort of have them walk off in space. Since we're not really dealing with animation, it's really much better just to do things the older way, where the SRT is pretty much the location of the character at any point. Okay, so that's the SRT manipulation. There's not much to it. Again, it's the same as any other SRT manipulation in the app. So I would look to the cube piece as a good example of getting into the details of how to use things like the transform window and the view window to get around in here.